Hey there and welcome. In today's video, I want to talk about heart rate variability, how it's related to chronic stress, and how you can actually use it to reduce the detrimental effects of chronic stress in your own life. Let's dive in. Welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Jessica. I'm a naturopathic doctor, acupuncturist, and health coach, and I help busy people overcome stress, anxiety, fatigue, and all the symptoms that come along with that and burnout. So first of all, what is heart rate variability or HRV? Well, HRV is actually a measure of the amount of time in between beats of your heart. So we often think of our heart rate as this steady number and that the time in between beats doesn't really vary, but that's actually not true. That we actually want that time in between beats to have some variability in it. Now, this is important because the higher your heart rate variability, actually the healthier you are and the better responsive or the more resilient you actually are to stress. And the lower your HRV, the more prone you are to chronic conditions and illnesses and disease. So the reason we have this variability in our heart rate to begin with is because our heart rate is controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And if you recall from other videos that the autonomic nervous system is composed of the sympathetic nervous system, which is our go, 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 fight or flight, and our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, relax sort of nervous system. So our heart rate is controlled by the two of them. So your heart rate increases when your sympathetic nervous system is in charge, and then your heart rate decreases when your parasympathetic nervous system is in charge. When you inhale, we're activating the sympathetic, and when we exhale, we're activating the parasympathetic. So you can see how heart rate variability is actually used to measure how well your nervous system is doing. And like I mentioned before, when your heart rate variability is higher or high, that means we are better able to cope with stress. That means our nervous system is able to easily go from sympathetic to parasympathetic mode. And in that case, that means we are more resilient to stress. We're better able to cope, and we're still able to make great decisions while going through that stressful period. So how do we then use HRV as a measure for stress reduction? Well, we need to talk a little bit about how the heart and the brain are actually related. When we are chronically stressed, we know that physiological changes happen, such as our heart rate becoming more erratic, our brain being not able to think as well, or is not making as great decisions because of the effects of cortisol and blah, blah, blah. You can check out link to this video if you want to learn more about the whole response. So we know that our heart and brain talk to each other and are connected via many different neural networks and pathways. There's a whole branch called neurocardiology, which kind of further delves into all of that. We know that the heart is always sending signals to the brain and the brain sending signals to the heart in this kind of feedback loop between these connections. Now, we can actually use HRV as a measure to say how coherent or how well are these systems talking to each other? How good is this signal? When you are feeling the emotions of stress, so frustration, irritability, anxiety, we know that the signal that the heart is sending to the brain is not a coherent signal. It is very erratic and it is very incoherent. That in turn, when the brain receives that signal, the brain then mounts a stress response or triggers the stress response. So that gets our HPA axis involved, cortisol, and everything else starts to get released. And when that happens, we already know that that starts to trigger things like poor concentration, difficulty thinking, lack of focus, and ultimately leads us usually to make really poor decisions. So knowing about this connection, we can actually use this heart rate variability to see how well our body is responding to stress. And we can do this using mindfulness practices such as breath work and meditation. Using techniques such as breath work and meditation have been shown to increase heart rate variability. So there are a number of devices and wearables that actually will show you HRV in real time. So using these devices along with your breath work or your meditation practice, you can actually see in real time how those practices change your HRV and start to increase your heart rate variability. So there are many different types of biofeedback devices. I personally use the M-Wave. I use it with clients in my program, the Better Health Blueprint, and I also use it on myself personally. I also use the Aura Ring, and I'll show you in a separate video how I actually use these with clients or how I actually use them with myself to actually measure HRV and see, okay, is my meditation practice actually helping? What did my heart rate variability look like? The point of using these devices and having this visual feedback actually helps to inform your brain and inform your mind and inform your body how it feels when you're actually starting to implement these practices. That way, when you do encounter a stressful situation, you know what it feels like to use these. You know how to actually get into your autonomic nervous system in a way and actually start to activate or increase your heart rate variability. And the reason it's often really helpful to see what your heart rate variability is doing is so that you can then associate that with the feeling. And I have found that when people are able to associate, one, why are we doing this? So, what is the physiological reason behind it? And two, how do I feel and what is the end result? People are far more likely to stick to a new habit, such as meditation or mindfulness or breath work. And when we're able to kind of pull ourselves out of that stressful situation using that breathing or that meditation or the breath work, then we're able to actually break the sympathetic nervous system down and actually start to activate that parasympathetic nervous system. This helps us reduce the effects of chronic stress and pulls us out of that automatic response we usually have. This in turn is then going to help us sleep better. It's going to help us think more clearly. It's going to help us concentrate more. It's going to activate our immune system, and the effects go on and on and on of when we pull away that chronic stress, our body and mind starts to thrive. I hope that this video was helpful. If you have questions, as always, leave them in the comments below. I will have a part 2 on how I actually use the Oura Ring and the M-Wave in my practice and in my program, the Better Health Blueprint. So if you want to learn more, stick around for that video. Be sure to give this a thumbs up and also be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe if you haven't already joined. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.